Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Missing our maths lessons at school. What I thought could be really useful is for me to film a video with some answers, but also methods of how to get to the answers on some of the work that we've been doing. So I know that the work that I've sent out to you has included those problems of the day that come from White Rose Maths. You should all have a copy of those, but I'm also going to be using the questions in this video for you to be able to see. So those problems of the day come in two sets. Every day has some orange questions and some blue questions, which is slightly trickier. So we're going to go through the answers for all of them, but don't worry if you only attempted the orange and not the blue. Okay, on that note then, let's have a look at those questions. So I'm just going to open up the orange questions, which you can see here. What I'm then going to do is make myself a little bit bigger for you. And then we're going to go through these questions. So let's have a look at question number 1. Asks us to fill in the missing numbers. And it says that 10 less than 46 is blank and blank more than 30 is 35. Well, there's a couple of ways to go about this one. We could think about using our number lines. So we know in that first question, it says 10 less than 46. And we know that less than means getting smaller. So I could draw 46 at the end of my number line, and then I could be hopping 10 jumps back. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Got 10 hops all the way back. And then I would simply count back with those hops, 45, 44, 43, all the way until I get to 36. Or I could use my knowledge of place value to do these. So we know that all of our numbers have their units on the far right, then it's tens, hundreds, and so on. So I've got my place value headings here for me, units, tens, hundreds. I've got the number 46. So 46 has 4 tens and 6 units. So we're going to fill that out. Now we know that we are 10 less, which means we have to edit this column. So we're going to reduce this by 1. So 4 becomes 3. The 6 stays the same. So 10 less than 46 is 36. Okay, then on to the next one. Blank more than 30 is 35. Well, again, we could use our number line, but this time 30 is going to go at the start because we're looking for more than. And I'm going to draw my number line up to 35. So I've got 30 at the start and 35 at the end. I need to figure out how many jumps I took to get in between. So we're going to hop along our number line to 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. And then we're going to count how many hops we did. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hops. So there is 5 more than 30 is 35. Okay, that was a nice little easy warm up. I like those questions. Now let's have a look at the next question. We've got a boy called Teddy here in question number 2. And Teddy tells us that this is half of my sweets. There's a picture of some red wrapped sweets underneath. But it asks us, how many sweets does Teddy have? And here we're looking for how many does he have in total? Because what we've got in the picture is only half. Well, let's think about what we know about halves. If we cut something in half, you know I always teach you guys with pizza or pie or cake because I'm quite obsessed with my food. Let's have a think about that. I've got a nice round cake to share. I'm going to cut it in half so that it is fair for myself and my brother who I'm going to share it with. That means this side is the same size as this size. And another word that we know that means the same is equal. So if we cut something in half, we cut it into equal pieces. But the important thing is that we cut it into 2 equal. Now here it's not pieces, but it's groups. So we need our sweets to be in 2 equal groups. So what I'm going to draw a circle for one group and a circle for the other group. So I've got ready for group 1 and group 2. Now we can see that Teddy's told us he has half of his sweets. Well, let's have a look and let's count how many sweets Teddy's got there. I make that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in this group, there are 5. Now it is very important that those two groups are equal. So if there's 5 in that group, there must also be 5 in the other group. So Teddy has 2 halves of the same size, 5. How do we figure out his whole or his total? Well, we know that to figure out a total, we are going to do an addition calculation. So 1/2 is 5, add on the other half, which is 5. 5 add 5 equals, brilliant, 10. So Teddy has 10 sweets. Okay, question 1 and 2 done. Let's have a look at question number 3. So over here, we've got a bit of a different question. We've got a rectangle. Now, it might be quite hard to see on my screen, so I'm going to draw it out as well. And this rectangle has been cut up into pieces. And then there is a girl called Lucy in our question, and it says that Lucy has shaded part of the rectangle. Now, this is what's quite hard to see on the picture, but these ones here are shaded. So I will draw it out on the whiteboard for you, use some different colours. Here we go, copycat rectangle with some shading. Then tells us that Lucy shades in some more squares. 3/4 of the rectangle is now shaded. How many more squares did Lucy shade? There's quite a lot into this question. So I'm going to use a different colour again, and I'm going to think about what we know. Now, if we have a look at what we've got shaded already, I think based on the last question, a lot of you would be able to tell me what fraction is already shaded. I'm going to draw a line across the middle that way to help you. Can you see that the top bit is equal to the bottom bit? So I have cut the shape in half. So half of Lucy's rectangle is shaded at the moment. Now, we don't actually want half, we want 3/4. We know that when we cut something in half, we use 2 equal groups because the denominator of a half is 2. Well, this time we're going to be looking at quarters. So if the denominator is 4, we need to cut this into 4 equal groups. Going to have a look here and think about how I can make my rectangle into quarters. And I think if I do a line top to bottom now, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equal groups. Brilliant. At the moment, how many of my 4 groups are coloured in? 1, 2. In the question, we wanted 3/4 coloured in. So I need to colour in another section. So let me just get my different pen and colour that in. And let's have a look now. 1, 2, 3 sections coloured in, 3/4. The question though asks us, how many more squares did I colour? So I started with 4 squares coloured, and I've coloured these in. So I have coloured 2 more squares. Let's just check that because some of you have been doing equivalent fractions with me, and if you carry on to the blue questions in a minute, you might need this knowledge. Let's think about an equivalent fraction to 3/4. And for that, we need to think about, well, how many squares are inside this rectangle? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Brilliant. Okay, 8 goes as our denominator because it is all of our squares. Then we need to have a look at how many we want or how many we've coloured in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going to put that on the top. Now, how can I check that 3/4 and 6/8 are equivalent fractions? Let's think about our times tables. What do we do to a 4 to turn it into an 8? That's right, we times it by 2. Now, you all know the rules with fractions, that whatever we do to the bottom or to the denominator, we have to repeat the same to the numerator. Let me just get my arrow the right way around. So whatever we do to the 4 times by 2, we have to do to the 3. Is 3 times 2 6? I hope it is. Yes, it is. So 3/4 and 6/8 are an equivalent fraction. So Lucy coloured in 2 more squares, make 6/8 or 3/4. And that's day 1 of the orange questions done. So really well done if you got those answers right, or if some of them you'd had a go at but weren't so sure, hoping now that I've worked it through with you, you feel confident with that. Okay, let's move on to the blue questions, the trickier ones. Now, if you haven't had a go at these, but you think you're up for the challenge, I think it would be really good if you pause the video as I'm going along and give them a go and then come back to check your answers. So we've got a very similar question at the start here. So we've got 100 less than 20,000 is, and then we've got something more than 20,000 is 20,600. Well, we could go back to our number line like we did on the last page, but if I do 100 hops backwards, I feel like I might be here a while and the video is going to get a little bit boring. So let's think about our place value columns. Now, I know before I talked about units and tens and hundreds. We go beyond that here. After the hundreds, we come to thousands, and after the thousands, we have tens of thousands. We can stop there for this question. So, going to show that I've done a nice place value grid to be able to answer this question. Units, tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. So if I fill in the number 20,000, what I'm going to do is put a 2 in the tens of thousands column and a 0 in the thousands. So you can see already we've got 20 thousands and then we got nothing for the rest. So there is my number 20,000. Now I want to go 100 less. So it might look a bit tricky because we've got nothing in the hundreds column at the moment. But can you remember that each column is jumping up by 10? So what we could do is borrow some along to make it a bit easier. Okay, we're going to borrow from our tens of thousands and bring it over here into our thousands. So if we take 1 10 off, I'm going to use a red pen for this one so it shows up. That 2 is going to become a 1, isn't it? And we're going to bring that 10 over here because 10 1,000s are the same as 1 10,000. Now we actually want to get to this one here. So I'm going to borrow again and say, actually, that's now just 9 thousands. And I'm going to put that in there because 1,000 that we've just pinched is the same as 10 hundredths. Now I think we might be able to take away from our 100 column. You guys are all very good at telling me what 10 take away 1 is. It's going to give us a 9. So once we've changed that, we can keep everything else the same. So our new number, if we look using our place value columns in the 10,000s and the thousands, so 19,900. Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same to figure out the next blank. We're going to fill out our 20,000 again in that box. So I've lined it all up in its place value and put out my 20,000. And now I'm going to put in my 20,600. So 2 in the 10,000, 0 in the 1,000. This time we get a 6 in the hundreds column. So we're going to compare our numbers. What's the difference? Well, that's the same, that's the same. Ah, there's 6 more hundreds. That's the same and that's the same. So there is 600 more. So we want 19,900 and 600. Brilliant. Okay, so Teddy's back, but he's not got sweets this time. He's just thinking of numbers. So let's have a think here. Teddy is thinking of a number, and he tells us that 25% of his number is 24. We've been asked what number is he thinking of. Okay, give you a bit of a clue on how to get started with this one. We're going to use our bar models to help us. So I'm going to draw out a bar. Now this whole bar is Teddy's number. So the whole bar is Teddy's number. And we know that in our percentages, that means it's the whole, so it is 100%. Okay, part of Teddy's whole number is 24. We need to think about what part. Well, he's told us 25%. Now, I'm hoping that some of you have remembered 25% because we like the numbers 50% and 25%. They're ones that we remember, aren't they? Let's have a think about what that could be. How do I get from 100 to 25? Well, I'm quite good with my twos, so I'm going to split 100 in half or divide it by 2, and that will get me down to 50. I'm going to split it in half again or divide it by another 2. Gets me to 25. So I've divided it by 2 and divided it by 2 again, which we know is like dividing by 4. So I'm hoping some of you were shouting at your computers that you'd remembered 25% is equal to the fraction 1/4. Okay? And we've just discussed, haven't we, in some of the last questions, that if we split something up into a quarter, means we split it into 4 groups. And the important word about those groups is that they are equal. So here's Teddy's number, and here it is split into 4 equal groups. I can now label one of my groups, which is 25%. I can label that 24 because Teddy has told me 25% of his number is 24. Now, if I know that this box is 24, I also know that this box is 24 and this box is 24 and this box is 24 because they are all the same. They are equal groups. So let me go ahead and fill that out. 24, 24, 24. So what could I do now to figure out this mystery number, Teddy's whole number? We want the total of the bar. So there are a couple of ways we could do this. We could add up each section. So 24 plus 24 plus 24 plus 24. Or we could do 4 lots of 24, which is the same as saying 4 times 24. Let's try both methods and see. So I'm going to write 24 in column addition over here. So my calculation is 24, add 24, add 24, add 24. And we all know when we do column addition, we are starting with our units. So I've got 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, plus 4 is 16. Think about what lines up where. The 6 is going to stay in the units column, and the 1 goes underneath the tens column. Now I'm going to do 2, add 2 is 4, add 2 is 6, add 2 is 8, add 1 is 9, and I'm going to put that in there. So by adding them up, I figured out Teddy's number is 96. I'm going to check that by doing the multiplication I suggested. So over here, I'm going to write out 24, and our calculation is multiplied by 4. So here, again, I'm going to start with our units. 4 times 4 is 16. So we put the 6 in the units, and we move the 1 under the tens. Now we do 4 times 2 is 8, and we add on our 1, 9. Phew, must have got my maths right. The answer's the same both times. So Teddy's number is 96. Okay, last question for the day 1 problems of the day then. Let me just move you across. So we're back to Lucy shading in her rectangle. Now, this time we've got a bit of a bigger rectangle and it's quite hard to see the shading. So again, I will draw it out and colour it in on mine. So just make sure I copy the picture properly and I've drawn the right amount of squares. That's very, very crucial. Okay. Okay, and then we'll have a look at which ones Lucy has already shaded in. So here is my copycat diagram of Lucy's rectangle. Now, it tells us that Lucy shades in some more squares, and then 7/9 of the rectangle is now shaded. So how many more squares did she shade? Okay, well, let's think about what is already shaded. So the first thing is we need to know how many squares are there in total. Remember that goes on our denominator. So have a count of the squares. How many are there in total? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because it's like an array, we're going to go down here. 1, 2, 3. We've got 3 lots of 6. There are 18 squares. So my denominator is going to become 18. Now, remember our numerator, the top of our fraction, is how many we want. So how many red ones has she coloured in? Let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So at the moment, we have 5/18 shaded in. Great. We want 7/9. I'm going to write that out over on the other side of the rectangle. 7/9. Now, there are more than 9 squares in this rectangle, as we've just decided. In fact, we know there are 18. So we're going to have to try and create an equivalent fraction over here. So this is just like we were doing before on our equivalent fractions using our times table. So we need to think, how do we turn 9 into 18? What calculation shall we do? Okay, we are going to times it by 2. Now, what's that rule? Whatever we do to our denominator, what do we have to do to the numerator? The same again. So I'm going to do 7 times 2 up here. We'll try and work that one out, and we should arrive at 14/18. So we know to end up with 7/9 shaded, we should have 14 out of our 18 squares coloured in. Now, actually, we've already got 5. So I'm going to count on from 5, colour them in a slightly different colour and see how many more I coloured. So I'm on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I have now coloured 14 out of the 18 squares. But how many more did I colour? How many are blue? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Brilliant. And we can check that because remember, how many more is one of those clue words that we are looking for a difference or a gap. So we are looking for the difference between 5 and 14, which means we do a takeaway. So 14 take away 5 equals, that's it, 9. So Lucy colours in 9 more squares. And that's it. That is problem of the day, day 1, all gone through. 6 questions, getting trickier and trickier. So well done if you followed this video all the way along. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do another one of these videos for every day of the problem of the days. But I would really like you guys to have an attempt at them first, or every time I give a new bit of a clue to the question, perhaps pause the video and give it a go. I will still be there waiting with the answer when you are done. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and don't worry about getting in contact if I've got any questions I can answer, or you would like a little bit more of a challenge because I've got lots of questions up my sleeve. Thanks very much. Bye.